My topic this morning is illusions. The earth is endlessly revolving on its own axis, while at the same time it's revolving around the sun. Our sun is revolving in our galaxy, while our galaxy is revolving and expanding in our universe. And all of this is happening at dizzying speeds. Yet we have the illusion of standing still. We turn our eyes towards the sky, and we have the illusion of looking up, when in fact we're looking out. Human history is just filled with beliefs not in accord with the facts. We're subject to a multitude of illusions. Some of the illusions we create ourselves, and others are inherited illusions. We all possess illusions not only about our personal life, but about the universe in general. Early in childhood, we believed that the whole world just revolves around us, and everything that happens is somehow related to me. Some children carry that illusion into adulthood, believing that the world revolves around them. They may be so self-absorbed that they believe that everyone in the world should think and act and behave and feel exactly as they do, because they're doing it right. A young child may declare, "Oh, it snowed so I could go sleigh riding." Or, "Mama is sick because I made her mad." Now, adults may carry that illusion, and they may say things like, "God is punishing me for my sins," or "God saved me from the plane crash," or "God, let me make the touchdown." Even in what should be maturity, many people cling to childhood illusions. It is normal and very appropriate for children to go through these egocentric phases. But it is not appropriate when adults think that they are the center of the universe. Seeing oneself at the center of the universe is not only incredibly restrictive, but it becomes pathological. Another common illusion of childhood is that our parents are all-knowing and unwavering in their care for us. We're so invested in the idea of the good parent taking care of us that we have transferred that idea of the perfect parent to a supernatural, all-knowing being. It is as though we feel that this being has an absolute personal interest in our everyday life, our happiness, our well-being. Children begin to lose their egocentrism as they age, and usually by about 7 or 8 years of age, children no longer believe that the physical world revolves around just them. When adults exhibit this childlike egocentrism, it becomes problematic, or at least it becomes problematic for the people around them. When it comes to religious beliefs, some people will talk ad infinitum to their God, believing that he, she, or it is listening to their every word and is going to change the whole world just for them. When it comes to our relationship with the mystery, children view God as this grandfatherly figure with this long, white, flowing beard. Much like Santa Claus to the child, God is seen as this all-knowing, all-caring person. He takes names, he makes lists, and he checks it twice to make sure we're naughty or nice. Children start out with the illusion of Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, and this grandfatherly God. But as they mature, they give up Santa, the Bunny, the Fairy, but they tend to retain the illusion of this grandfatherly figure. Thus, when you analyze it, it's the illusion that the person is so important as to sustain the constant vigilance of the creator of the entire universe. The illusion of self-importance is held not only by individuals, but by ethnic groups, religions, even countries. There are entire cultures that believe in a sense of specialness because of what they believe, where they were born, or where they attend church. From the smallest church to the largest religion, many people have the illusion that they alone are going to ascend into heaven or enter into paradise, and all others will be thrown into the fires of hell. This very narrow view of the human experience is a primary cause of many of our human problems. Now, just for the fun of it, if you will, imagine two stalwart preachers facing each other in defiance, and each claiming that the other's church members are going to go to hell because of what they believe. I can't think of anything more laughable. Provincial beliefs and illusions are held by people all over the globe. They tend to be very narrow, and they are certainly self-serving. To borrow a line from Emerson, and I quote, "The hobgoblins of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines." Close quote. Holding on to beliefs of specialness, I think, is a state of arrested development. When we were far less knowledgeable than we are today, the illusion was that we were much more important in the grander scheme of things. But in retrospect, our species started out as little nomadic bands, always wandering around in search for food and water and shelter. We were dependent upon our gods to lead us to greener pastures. It was only about 10 or 15,000 years ago that we actually began to settle in towns and villages. We reduced our reliance on hunting and gathering by farming and cultivating. As a species, we have done very well at surviving, but culturally, we have been a bit slow. In the vast sea of time, it is less than 1% of our history since we decided to domesticate animals and grow our food. And yet there are those who cling to the illusion that with a wave of a masterful hand, everything was magically created. When we reflect on our early history, our worldview was pretty primitive, and it was always locally constricted. The sun rose for us every morning so that we could go about our business, and it set each evening just so we could go to sleep. The moon rose for us in the evening so we could see by night. The heavenly bodies all encircled us constantly. We were the center of the universe. One of the Persian viziers was once asked, which was more important, the sun or the moon? And he replied, the moon, of course. The sun only shines in the daytime when it's already light. The shared, and it is a shared world illusion that everything revolved around us. To any primitive observer, it was obvious we were standing still, and the moon and the stars and all the planets were revolving around us. We were God's creation, and everything was created for our use and benefit. This is a geocentric view. And the geocentric view said we must be important if everything revolves around us. Geocentrism was important in the development of early religions because there was the illusion of importance. For thousands of years, our gods were in the skies and under the ground and in all of nature's creation, the wind and fire and rain and thunder and trees. Gods were everywhere. These gods held their fortunes in our fortune in their hands. So we pleased them with songs and gifts and prayers and celebrations. The geocentric idea began to achieve prominence about 6,000 years ago. The young Egyptian king Akhenaten came to power about 4,000, the year 4,000 before the current age. He was one of the first religious reformers. Akhenaten believed in the idea of monotheism, the one God. And although there was enormous infighting, murders, and everything else took place because of the fighting over the values and the power of our gods, Akhenaten's ideas began to get a foothold. When the Israelites left Egypt, they carried with them this idea of the single God. Now, it took centuries before the Israelis began to accept this idea of monotheism and give up their pantheons. To the ancient Hebrews, God was good, but he must be honored and worshipped, or he could be a wrathful God. Our gods were no longer spirits in the environment. The one God of monotheism was constructed much like the Father in our own families. The Father was the head of the family, and he could be giving or very wrathful, but he was dominant. The only model that early humans had for visualizing this concept of a God was the Father in the paternalistic family. So our monotheistic gods inherited the same characteristics as the father in the household. In essence, we did create God in our own image. No one can say, in all honesty, that the universe is not amazing and mysterious and wonderful. But it is highly improbable that the mystery looks like a grandfatherly Caucasian. The illusion still persists, however. This exaggerated sense of self-importance is summed up in this quote by Sir Francis Bacon in 1619, and I quote, "If man were taken away from the world, the rest would seem all astray, without aim or purpose, and be leading to nothing," close quote. There are many people who cling to the illusion that the world without human beings would have no value. Since life forms existed about 99% of the time before humans entered the stage, I think we can assume that all other living things would probably get along very well without our company or intervention. I feel that this belief in the centrality of humanity never seemed arrogant to early humans because it all seemed so natural. It seemed ordained. But what we know now is that always the illusion of superiority feeds all of the other chauvinistic beliefs, like bigotry and elitism and sexism and nationalism. If you stop to think of it, there are several illusions at work here. The illusion that my beliefs are right and your beliefs are wrong. The illusion that we live on the only inhabitable planet in 400 billion galaxies. The illusion that everything around us is our gift and we can use it any way we want to use it because it was made for us. And of course the illusion that we are special, superior, anointed, appointed, chosen. We are the one creation. Armed with this illusion, the Jews or the Islamists or the Catholics or the Baptists can claim we alone have the truth. Thoughtful souls have to wonder where such ignoble ideas came from and why they persist. In examining these questions, we must look into three areas of interest: predisposing, precipitating, and perpetuating factors. Now, we can reasonably speculate that our fears, our loneliness, and our isolation contributed to our predisposed need for some higher power to watch over us. Our geocentric view of the universe most certainly was a precipitating factor in contributing to the explosion of religions onto the world stage. Now, to understand what perpetuates these egocentric ideas, we have to examine what has been taught to us by early philosophers and theologians. Men like Ptolemy, Aristotle, Plato, St. Augustine, Thomas Aquinas perpetuated this notion of specialness. Plato said, and I quote, "The perfection of the world would be incomplete without humans," close quote. And in 1625, John Donne wrote, "Man is all. He is not a piece of the world, but the world itself, connected to the glory of God, the reason why there is a God," close quote. Now that's an interesting phrase, isn't it? According to Donne, we are the very reason that God exists. Actually, if you look at it from a certain perspective, that's true, isn't it? If we created him. If it were just men of antiquity, and I say men because usually it is, that preach the idea of creation and consideration from this all-knowing anthropomorphic being, the idea might have died out with the dawn of science. However, every day the clergy of all stripes, with their enormously powerful influence, preach and spread the idea of an illusion that should have perhaps gone the way of Santa Claus. Perhaps the first time our illusory bubble was burst was in the 16th century. The astronomer Nicholas Copernicus published his findings that the Earth revolved around the sun. How could this be? Did this mean we're not the center of the universe? Absurd, cried the church. This is heresy. The church quickly responded, reassuring everyone that this was not true. They said it was just a computational method for figuring out celestial movements. In other words, it was a mathematical formulation, not a reality. One of the foremost Vatican theologians, Cardinal Bellarmine, wrote the following: "This has no danger in it and suffices for the mathematician. But to affirm that the sun is really affixed in the center of the heavens and that the earth revolves swiftly around the sun is a dangerous thing, not only irritating theologians and philosophers, but injuring our holy faith and making the sacred scriptures false." Close quote. We were so affixed in this illusion that if the illusion were not true, the principles of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity would all be false. A little over a century before this, Tertullian, the father of modern Christianity, said, "If you have any sense or modesty, you will quit prying into the regions of the sky into the destiny and secrets of the universe, close quote. There are still those who would silence science forever and have us trapped in this idea that this great being waved his hand and the earth and the heavens were manifested in a day. Humanity marched on and the illusion continued to unravel. Galileo pointed his telescope towards the sky and revealed to us that the Milky Way was a large group of stars clustered in the heavens. That meant our sun wasn't even special. It was just one of millions, billions. For this heresy, Galileo was placed on house arrest for the last 8 years of his life. Over time, we have become acutely aware that we live on one small dot in an infinite array of dots, more proof that we are not as special as we have been taught to believe. Yet in spite of our growing scientific knowledge, there are those that cling to the idea that we are special not because of our works, but because we were created in an instant. Religious bigotry is as ludicrous as the idea of nationalism. And nationalism is that infamous ism that makes us special because of where we happen to be born geographically. The time has come for us to grow up and recognize that we are not special because of our birthplace, our ideology. We can only be special because of our works. Xenophanes, the 6th century Greek philosopher, recognized our religious bigotry and made the following observation, and I quote, this is the 6th century. The Ethiopians make their gods black and snub-nosed. The Thracians say their god has blue eyes and red hair. Yes, and if oxen and horses and lions had hands and could paint with their hands and produce works of art as men do, horses would paint the form of their gods like horses and oxen like oxen. We know that the sun is not the center of the universe. We know that the earth revolves around the sun, and we know that the sun itself is not the center of the universe, and that our galaxy is not even the center of the universe. To put it plainly, we live in an unremarkable sector of an unremarkable spiral arm of an unremarkable galaxy, and our galaxy contains an estimated 400 billion stars, and it is estimated that there are as many galaxies as there are stars in our galaxy. Now I want to give you an idea of how large this is, and I want you to play with this over the next few days. Using a regular rhythmic counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you can count about 100 stars in a minute. Now, using that figure, we could count 6,000 stars in an hour. We could count 1,000,000 stars in a week. 52 million stars in a year. Now, given a lifespan of 75 years, that means we could spend our entire lifetime counting stars in our galaxy alone, and without bathroom breaks, you would count less than 1/100th of 1% of the stars in our galaxy alone. Our importance in the universe diminishes quickly when we put a mathematical perspective on that. Now granted, the illusion of specialness is very intoxicating. But reason must rise above fantasy. We live in a universe that is estimated at 15 billion light years across. There is an extremely low probability that all of this was created just for us. It is even less probable that God looks just like you and me. Now there is one illusion that is more pathological than all others, and that is the illusion that some people, preachers, rabbis, priests, mullahs, can know the mind of God. The very notion that someone no more gifted than you or me can speak on God's behalf is, to me, beyond comprehension. There's no one on this planet that is any closer to the eternal than anyone else. And from my opinion, anyone who stands in public and claims that God personally speaks to them should be personally viewed with the utmost skepticism. There's an applicable expression that goes something like this: run with people who seek God. Run from people who claim to have found Him. The natural world is giving us a healthy dose of humility, and it is time we swallowed it and got on with the business of survival. But what about spirituality, you may ask? We human beings seem to have a need for the spiritual. So if I give up this notion of this wonderful supernatural being, is all lost? Not at all. The thoughtful person can satisfy our spiritual needs by continuing to be astounded at the amazing mysteries of the universe and life, and the mysteries of our relationship with all other things in existence. When we come of age, we will give up our gigantic egos and let our illusions dissolve. And we will recognize that the mystery itself is much more captivating than any story we could make up about the mystery. Growing up means that we no longer believe that we were created in the wave of a supernatural hand. It means that we no longer believe that Americans are more special than all other people on the planet. It means that white is no better than black, that men are not smarter than women, and that believers have this special place and non-believers are lost forever. After all is said and done, what God worth His salt would want anybody to kill in His name? I would not say that humanity has made no progress since our infancy, but we still cling to an illusion that makes us intolerable egotists. And the delusional project this facade of superiority onto race and color and gender and religious belief. I would like to say that we have fallen from some nice moral platform, but in fact we haven't. I think we are beginning to elevate. I think we are beginning to accept our status as ordinary in the grander scheme of things. Our eyes have been opened by science where they were closed by superstition. And open eyes let us see possibilities. We have the godlike qualities to save ourselves. It's time we stop waiting for somebody out there to do it for us. We may be ordinary rather than special, but we are not impotent. We have human brains. We are humanity on evolution's march toward a great mystery. The sooner we give up our illusions, the sooner we will start taking care of this human family and start solving our massive problems. We only have one little planet on which we all live, and Earth must be the place where humanity makes its stand. If we are to survive, we must be responsible. We must respect our diversity because diversity has survival implications. We have been egocentric long enough, and though it is humbling to accept the reality of our lesser status, there is so much more to be gained by being a healthy adult. We don't live in Eden anymore. We live in the real world. And no matter how much we want to believe we are special, we can only be special by our deeds. Our inheritance from the universe is opportunity. I'd like to take a parable from Matthew. What will we do with the talents we have? Will we use them wisely? Will we multiply our talents? Or will we not do anything because we didn't get enough talents, or just sitting back waiting for somebody else out there to save us? So be it.